I'm Stickosaurus, and today we're going to be working on this Kyuranger black helmet. I believe this model is from 3D Command Center on Instagram. Check them out, great models, highly recommend. This is a very wild helmet for sure. Printed really nice, back's got a little loose, but it won't be a problem once we get done with it. Still trying to decide if I want to cut out this part of the visor and put an actual visor in, or if we're going to do holes like a stunt visor, but we'll get there. First, I'm going to hit this with some 60 grit, and then a little bit of 120, and then I'm going to epoxy sculpt some of the rough areas on the chin and the overhangs, and then we'll get to priming, but let's get this sanding done first. That should be good enough for now. Like I said, you just need a rough sand at the beginning. Because once we get the epoxy on here, we'll have to sand that a little bit. And then we'll prime it. And then when you hit it with the 220, that's when it'll get nice and smooth. You want to take your time with that. But this is just so the primer adheres to it better and you take down any of the really high spots. There's some weird banding up here. I hope doesn't shush through when it's done, but this is going to be all black except for this white around here. I'm pretty sure. I haven't seen Kyuranger yet, but from what I remember. But all right, next we're going to hit it with some Epoxy Sculpt. Get the chin and this little overhang here. All the other overhangs look pretty okay. I'm going to be honest with you. I printed supports the whole way up this, and they came off rather nice. I don't know if you can tell, but just a little bit of bumps. Actually, not even that many. I took them down pretty good with that 60, so. So here I'm using two-part Epoxy Sculpt. I use this on the chins in any areas that some supports were on, or some things that I didn't use supports that printed a little rough. Like underneath the visor part of this, I use a little bit. I like this best because I can use water and smooth it out like clay. I don't get a lot of air pockets like I do with Bondo. But if you don't want to use Epoxy Sculpt, you can use Bondo, like I said. I've used that a bunch of times. In my Samurai Red video, I have me using Bondo, and I still use that once in a while. You can use glazing spot putty if you want, or Bondo putty. That works as well. I've even seen people use some wood filler. I've used wood filler on helmets before. When I had a smaller printer, they were many parts. I had to put like 15 parts together. I use that to fill in the gaps, and that seemed to work pretty okay. But yeah, I really like the Epoxy Sculpt. A lot of people use it for custom action figures and all that, and it sands really nice. Not as nice as Bondo, but I think it's okay. And now after that's dry, it's time to sand down that Epoxy Sculpt. I start rough with 60, then I think here I go to 120, and I do end up doing 220 because I'm trying to get the feathering nice on the edges, but you don't have to. Usually I do the Epoxy Sculpt before I sand the whole helmet in general, so it's kind of working it up as I go, but since I already rough sanded the helmet, I had to catch up the Epoxy Sculpt, so. Now that we got it all rough sanded, it's time to hit it with some filler primer. You don't have to go too heavy on this coat. I usually save that for the second coat, but just want to get a good even coverage. Now that we have the first coat of primer on it, I usually like to let it dry for at least 24 hours before I sand it, but then I come back and hit it with 220 before we head on to the last coat of primer. Now this last coat of primer before we wet sand, I usually do pretty thick and make sure I get all areas completely covered. The wet sanding will smooth it down. You're pretty much sanding the paint at that point. All your high spots should be pretty much gone. I mean, it's in a perfect world. And again, you can always take the raw print and Bondo over all of it, smooth it all in, fill in all your divots and everything, and your print lines will pretty much disappear. But again, that's a lot of sanding. And if you're just doing one helmet, you want it to be perfect, I think that's the way to go. But I don't think doing it this way is that much worse. But again, that's entirely up to you. It's all your helmet, so give it a try any way you like it. Okay, so here's Kyuranger Black. He's ready to be wet sanded, pretty much, but I decided I'm gonna do a stunt visor on him, just in here. Been debating if I was gonna do a stunt visor or cut it out and do an actual visor, but the fine like white detail around here didn't print super well, so I feel if I cut it, it's just I'm just gonna lose it in the sanding process, of sanding this all down. So I'm just gonna do a couple holes in here for a visor so you can see through it. It won't look as nice. It kind of bums me out, but I'm gonna try it. I can always put another one and try a visor in it. I looked online for how people make visors for these Kyuranger helmets and can't really find much. A lot of them end up just being stunt ones that look really good from afar. I don't know if maybe I could trace this whole thing and just do a flat piece across it. Again, they probably have bucks for the visors and can vacuum form it and everything. I don't have that, so this is the best I can do. And it works. I've done some stunt visors. They're honestly definitely not as nice as the cutting them out and doing the visors yourself. They work, and they can look good, especially from afar. You sometimes don't even notice. Here's a Momo that I have sitting here that's almost done. Again, this isn't the ideal stunt visor. It's kind of random and everything. I kind of made it how they actually look on the show, and you can definitely see all the holes and everything, but you can see through it and everything. It's odd, on this one at least, to see through it, because I did it a little too randomly, but, you know, it works. And from far away, you can't really tell too much. Well, the Kyuranger ones, you definitely can. And I don't know if you saw the new Sentai Ranger. It looks like they put little dots on the visor to simulate the holes, but they're not actually holes. It looks pretty wild. I'm kind of excited to work on one of those. I'm sure someone's going to have some prototype models up here soon. But, so for this, I just made this on the computer real quick before. I need to sit down and make a better one with a grid. But I've been using these little templates I made for this. If someone has a better way to do this, or a correct way, I know sometimes you can get models with little divots where to drill the holes and all that. I don't drill the holes. It takes a lot of work and it makes a mess. I'm going to be using my wood burning tool with a pointy tip on it. It seems to be what I found that works the best. I did break my other tip that I used, so I'm not sure how this one's going to go. Also, don't put it on the front and go in. I like to do from the back. You get less burrs on the front then, so it's less sanding and cleanup you got to do. This also might get stuck on the inside, but that's okay. So this isn't perfectly, as you can tell, there's gap. It's not perfectly lined up with the spacing and all that, but it's worked for what I've used it for. And again, I'm just doing like this little section here, so I'm going to trim this from an edge. Just take this, fold it where I think it needs to cut. That looks good. Just cut down this line here. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. I've seen a lot of stunt visors that don't look that good when you get up close to them, but once you're far away, you can't really tell. This one's nice because you can kind of tell exactly where you're going to want to put it. So we're going to want to put it right in here. Hopefully you can see this. Again, don't stress too much about it. I used to stress out about making these stunt visors, and actual visors too, but if you look on my Instagram, my Kyuranger X visor is kind of an abomination. I had to fill in some gaps in it in the inside with extra visor material. You can't tell from the outside, but if you look on the inside, you definitely can. And with it on, you can tell a little bit, but it looks really good from the outside, in my opinion, so I don't have a problem with it. Now I'm just going to tape this down. So we've got something like that. It looks a little crooked, actually. Hold on. Don't want it to be crooked. So that looks okay. Now comes what is always the scary part, and it's actually starting to put holes in it. I'm probably going to try to just go across here, probably like 4 or 5 rows, and we'll take a look at it. I don't know if you can see that, but probably start here. Probably this, trying to fill, because there's a, you can kind of feel where this bends here. Probably start third one, go to the third one, probably about 4 or 5 rows. Let's see here. So there you go. It's not the best. Like I said, that new tool I was using, that new tip, I'll just show you. It's my other one was a lot longer before it got fat, so I could focus. But it worked. Like I said, it looks a little rough, but again, all these burrs are gonna they come right off. Honestly, just with a little bit of pulling once they cool down. And see, those are nice holes, even though they look rough here. I did slip up a little bit. It's hard. You want to try to keep your tool always going straight in and not at an angle. Sometimes it's difficult, especially when the curve is there. See, those come right off. Look how nice those look. And again, you won't see these once you got the paint on them, unless you're like right up next to it. But from like a distance, even like 6 foot, you might not even notice them, especially if you got a nice coat on top of them. Now, I'm not an expert. I've seen people put like matte finishes on their stunt visors and gloss everywhere else. Don't know if it matters. I have some where I've tried both, and honestly, they kind of look the same. It's easier to just do the gloss, personally, to me, because I'm gonna have to mask it off and do the matte, or vice versa. But again, that's entirely up to you. Let me tell you a secret. These are your helmets. You can do whatever you want. If you're printing them yourself, like I am, it might suck messing one up, but you know what? You can print another one and start over. Not a big deal. And even with this, you could fill this in with Epoxy Sculpt, Bondo, spot putty, whatever you want to use. Some people use wood filler putty. You could fill it in, sand it down, and try again. Or you could say, screw it, cut this out and make it a visor. Again, whatever you want to do. Try not to worry too much about it. You'll get on Facebook and you'll see all these prop makers making all these beautiful helmets and everything. And they're nice, don't get me wrong, especially if they're like nice resin ones. But I bet you if you zoom in and look at their panel lining and everything, you'll see some stuff that you didn't think you'd notice. And that's perfectly fine. That's how it goes. That's the name of the business. I mean, if you're paying $600, $700 for like an Anarchy helmet, though, I'd be a little upset. But again, if you look, you'll see not everything is as crystal clean and perfect as you think it is. But for this, see how this clean up. I'm just going to hit this with some, real quick, hit it with some 80, 120, and then bring it back up to the 220, and then we'll wet sand this. And it should be smooth as a button then, but I'll finish deburring this here, and then I'll do a quick sand, then we'll be on the wet sanding. Okay, here I'm just wet sanding with 400 grit sandpaper, so everything is nice and smooth to the touch. Now once we got this wet sanded, we're going to hit it with a base coat of gloss black. Okay. Going to add the glitter to this black Kyuranger. Not sure the best way to do this. This is what I did for my pink Kyuranger. It worked out pretty well, I thought. It looked good. I didn't clear coat that one though, so this one should be better. But I'm just gonna use some black craft glitter. I'm not sure what they actually do. I think they just like paint it. I don't know. Paint speckles? I'm not sure. But this worked last time. And this visor needed another coat on the front. But I was afraid to do it by the time I realized that I didn't want it to peel. So it should be good. It's been sitting a week. hopefully it's okay. I just need to get a nice little light wet coat on it, throw some glitter, and let it dry, and hopefully it'll look okay in the end, but I guess we'll find out. Alright, we might got a little too much in the front. Oh boy. Oh boy. We'll do this here a little bit of more paint here. That should calm it down. Looks better in person, I'll give you that. Okay. No, we'll let it dry and we'll see. Okay, so I let that dry, and I liked how it looked. As you can see here, it looks pretty cool up close. The white trim the whole way around the visor, and you could mask and spray paint this, of course, but with the glitter on it, I was worried about it getting pulled up, so I decided just to hand paint it. It takes a couple coats, but with some Model Masters white, I think that's what I use. I'll have to check, but I'm pretty sure it's Model Masters white. It covers pretty quickly. And here I'm just making a bunch of magnets for the inside. I just put little magnets in foam with hot glue and hot glue on the inside. It seems to work best. I have a better video, my Samurai Red, that I go in more detail how I make these, so if you want to find out, please check that out. And here's my favorite part. I do about 2 or 3 coats of gloss on top of everything. It'll make your matte paint, if you hand paint anything, look so much better, and it'll make it look like a brand new car. Alright, so this is Kyuranger Black. All top coated and everything. Now I'm going to put in the magnets and the elastic. And she'll be done. So here we go. These are the magnets I made previously. My wood burning tool died, so I had to use a soldering iron, so they're not as nice as usual. I get a better video, my Samurai Red video. I show how to make these a little better, if you'd like to make them like this. There's lots of things you can do. You can do clasps, of course. I always thought about making like a little 3D print a enclosure for these magnets and put them in there, but they get sharp and you gotta sand them down and then you gotta weld them into the helmet. These I just hot glue, and if I don't like them, I can rip them back out. They don't burn. I mean, they don't rub or anything. So that's why I've been using the floor mat foam. Again, that's up to you. I'd like to get thicker. This is pretty thin, but it's what I've been using for a while now, and it seems to work the best. Now, when I put magnets in here, if a helmet doesn't have keys, this one does. I usually put 4. If it has keys, I'll put just 2 at the bottom and the elastic. That's usually enough. If it's a really loose fit for the back and front, which can happen, I'll put 4. I'm going to try 2 on this one and see what we're working with here. It's a little pushed in on the sides at the bottom here, but we'll see. And for the elastic, I got a roll of black and white on Amazon for like, it was like 10 bucks for both. That I've just been using. I usually use about 3 to 4 inches of 2 pieces. Put them both at the top. But that's about all they are. Got that, got our 2 magnets. Put the pin back in this hole here so I don't lose it and step on it. So I just dropped it, of course. Alright, now when you put the magnets in, you want to make sure you got the top flush usually. That's usually the most important. You don't want the top sticking up or down like that, like that or something. I try to make this flush. I think that's what makes it the nicest. The sides you can cover up, but if you're looking, I probably can't get a good angle of it, but if you're looking dead on at it, you see a bump here. It doesn't look as good. So that feels pretty nice. And just put hot glue on both sides. You want to make sure that you get one on both sides of the helmet and try not to overlap it, because you will get glue that seeps into this crease between them and it will stick together. You'll have a hell of a time getting it apart. Personal experience. I'm trying to be ginger with this so I keep the back aligned, but just put it in there, push it in, and then you're good. So I apologize, it's a little hard to see, but when you're doing the elastic, I just put two dollops of glue on both ends of the piece and push one end down first and stretch it a little bit across the gap and then push that end down. It'll soak into the fabric and hold pretty well. And there you go. That is Kyuranger Black finished. I think it turned out really nice. Don't really do a lot of the stunt visors, but I think this one looks pretty good. Again, I don't really know how to make the visors for these other than vacuum forming, but again, I don't know how they do the paint for them. So I think the glitter, it's not right, but it looks okay, I think. Good enough for me, good enough for my shelf. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching me make this. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to comment or hit me up on Instagram, Stickosaurus. I'll try to answer you as soon as I can. There's a bunch of people I've been trying to help. They've been asking me a lot of questions about how I make these, so hopefully this video will clear up some of those questions for you. I have more coming as well. I've got about 6 helmets and videos in the works right now, so we're getting there. They just take a while. As you saw, this probably took a month and a half. That's with all the paint drying and everything. I kind of usually work on weekends, but yeah. This will be my second Kyuranger one. I don't think I'll get all of them. I don't have really room for all. I don't even know how many there are. 12? Yellow would be fun to do. Just because of that wild long visor, but maybe in the future. Definitely have green coming, and really like the sky blue one. I don't know the name of them yet. I haven't quite gotten to watch Kyuranger yet. Still in Bokanger right now, so slowly getting there. About 7 more seasons, maybe 13. Not 13. Yeah, 13. 13. Yeah, 43. 42. I don't know, but either way, thanks for watching.